Good evening, folks. Thanks for coming in. Hope you're all safe and well. Start of yet another week. So tonight we are joined for the first time by this gentleman here, podcast host, investigator, etc., etc. Ian, I was going to call you Yarrow. Ian Varrow. I was going to say Yarrow there. No, this guy's done a lot of podcasts. He's been at it for, I'm not going to say the amount of years because that might give his age away. So we'll just say he's done a lot. Do you know what I mean? And it's good to finally get him on the show. I don't know why we've never asked you on before, Ian, but you know, hey, you're here now. You know what I mean? There's Wee Eileen for Phantom Secret Paranormal. She's right on time tonight. Irene can sometimes come in late. She's busy, you know, having a wee gin or a wee smoke outside or something. She comes in late sometimes, but she's on time tonight. So thanks anyway for coming in, buddy. It's good to finally get you on and meet you.
Yeah, you're welcome, mate. Anytime.
How's, before we get into the nitty-gritty, how's things?
Yeah, not bad. I'm starting a new job Monday, so my last week at the old job this week. So,
I used to love that if you knew you were starting a new job and you gave in your notice. Your last week, you just didn't care.
Yeah, pretty much.
I used to drive the trucks and what have you, and if I knew I was got another job, the last week you were always late, your deliveries and all the rest of it, you just did not give a toss, you know. What are you going to do? Sack me. I'm leaving anyway. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, Ian, as I say, you're a podcast host as well, so why don't you tell us what you do and the usual kind of stuff?
Yeah, we talk all sorts of paranormal. Well, we start off talking paranormal. We end up down so many rabbit holes. As I said to you before, we ended up on quiches one night. I don't know how we got there, but that's just the sort of rabbit holes we end up down. But we try to deal with most topics in the field.
I mean, as I said before we came on, I mean, a couple of folk have criticised us over the years. Makes it sound like we've been doing this for decades, but no, I think this will be our fifth year this year. But you know, you don't do much paranormal, or what's your show? There wasn't much paranormal in it, you know, that kind of thing. So, well, there is paranormal in it, but sometimes, you know, we just talk, and as you say, there's so many rabbit holes you can go down, and so many subjects that you can talk about that maybe aren't paranormal related, but yeah. I think that helps me to make a good show. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many other topics involved with the paranormal, like what food do we eat at events?
No, you're totally right. I don't know what you mean, Eileen, do you mob happy? No idea. Scott, we go with the flow. You do that exactly. You go with the flow. But I mean, just you know, folk who ask you, would you eat it when you're doing investigations or whatever? And how can you put it? It might sound stupid, but maybe they folk are looking for hints of what to take on investigations.
Yeah, I mean, the best one, we did the cage in Set Offside, the medieval witches' prison, which is now a house. And Laurie Schaefer turned up with 48 Krispy Kreme donuts. It was only like 10 of us there. But, that was...
We're kind of like chocolate biscuits and stuff, the usual kind of crap, you know. We did a few years back, we did an overnight at a place called Caldwell up here. And I think, we take sandwiches, B?
Aye.
We took, you know, you make up sandwiches and that. But you never blooming eat them.
We took a kettle.
We took a kettle on, didn't we? Took a kettle with you're more happy when you've given in your notes. Thanks for that, Eileen. Good evening, Ian. Great to meet you. Evening, Gaffer. Sorry, I'm late. Was watching that. Laura, she's one of yours. No, Laura was in here the day. She knows we start at 9, but she's watching Gladiators. That's bad. That's back on now, but I used to watch it years ago when it was, I think it was Wolf and all the rest of it were in it. I don't know if you ever watched that or not.
Yeah, I mean, I used to live next door to Jet.
Jet. That was the last with the black hair, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the back in the original series. Yeah, she lived next door to us. But,
so how did it feel living next door to a celeb?
well, she was a paramedic as well, so bit strange, but there you go.
Eileen takes a Rolo, but do you love me enough, Eileen, to give me your last Rolo?
Oh.
It's all changed. It's still. I might get a watch. My sister used to stay next door to Katie Price.
Yeah. Did she move?
No, sorry to any Katie Price fans, but it's a person I've never ever took to.
Nah, me neither.
You know, never. I do. Thanks. Well, I'll be holding you to that, Eileen. Next time you see you, I want your last Rolo. No, I don't know what it is about her. She's just, I don't know. No doubt I'll offend people by saying I don't like Katie Price, but hey, you like who you like. It's.
For me, she just seems to do anything to get on the telly or the papers. So.
She seems to get in a lot of bother in the last year or so, I think, with money and, you know, all the rest. They don't pay a lot of attention. We just pop up now and again. Katie Price has done that. Katie Price has buggered off here, or, you know, whatever. So how did it all start for you, Ian? No doubt you've been asked this 1,000 times, but...
Well, age 5, my mother and myself moved into a house with my stepdad, which was extremely haunted. And my stepdad was a skeptic, but funnily enough, he's not anymore. But we lived there for 11 years, and during that time, we witnessed just about every side of the paranormal you could imagine. So years later, after trying to ignore it for years, I decided to start researching, which was about 30 years ago. And at the time, when we were going through what was happening, there was no one to turn to, but there was a guy called Andrew Green, who was a famous gunner that lived near us. We did contact him, but apart from that, there wasn't many other avenues. So after doing years of research on that, I decided, you know, I need to give someone an option to go to, and I started up my private case team, Residential Haunting. So, and I've been in the field ever since. So,
Laura says I live next door to Bert. She's got Bert. It's Laura's next door neighbour, an elderly woman, and her name's Susan. We've known Laura for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. But every time I went to Laura, Susan would always call me George. I don't know why. She was, how we doing, George? And I did start off saying, you know, the name Scott, but she persisted calling me George, so I just went along with it. Do you know what I mean? So now I call her Robert, because, you know, why not? You know, I just call her Robert too. So it's a kind of running joke. She's a brilliant wee woman. So it's a kind of running joke. I'll call her Bert every time I see her. That's what that comment means. So did you ever get to the bottom of what was causing the activity or whatever?
No, not entirely, because I was quite young at the time, but it's something I endeavour to go back and look into, because I don't live that far away from the house now. It was that. I mean, that the grounds of the house used to be quite massive, so the emerging neighbourhood is practically built on the grounds, and a lot of the neighbours used to witness activity sort of stemming from our house. It was a big mansion converted into flats, which we lived in the biggest one, which was on 2 floors. And there was a bungalow at the side, which back in the old days used to be a games room. And the old couple that used to live in there, they'd be sitting there at night watching the telly, and they'd hear snooker balls going in the front room.
It's Eile's private residence work can be a minefield, not telling folk what they want to hear. She's totally right there. I mean, I'll come back to that point, but Eileen, were you saying, the mansion was turned into private residences, and there's things happening. There's similar here. It's the old Royal Alexander Hospital, shut down in Paisley. It was a massive building, and they turned some of that building into flats. And it was supposed to be really, really haunted, the whole area kind of thing. And I think there was 2 or 3 people in the flats dying to sell their flat just because of what was going on and the Russies. So it is quite a quite a common thing.
Yeah. I know for a fact that one time John Logie Baird actually stayed at the property. So whether him doing experiments has anything to do with the activity, I do not know. But
that's the thing about the paranormal. You just don't know.
No.
There's that many usual rabbit holes that you can go down, and there's that many different theories, and everybody's got their own kind of theory and explanation, and stuff like that. But nobody knows exactly who's right. One is might be right, or we might all be wrong.
Or we all could be right.
We all could be right. I just think this is my interpretation. That spirit. When we go for here, to the other side of the door, basically, we're exactly the same, and we can use the words float about, whatever you want to call it, from place to place, whether it's a place you were happy in or a place you always wanted to go, and you suddenly realise, wait a minute, I'm free, I can go, Graceland or Tenerife or whatever.
Yeah.
And off you trot, basically. But get back to what Eileen was saying. I spoke to a few people about this. Have you ever had this? If you've done a private residence, we don't do them. We never have. But I know people that have, and they'll get into the house and they'll maybe say to the tenant, there's nothing here. We can't find anything, and the tenant goes after his nut.
Yeah. Private cases is mainly what we do. We do about 3 or 4 a year, and yes, it is a minefield. First off, you've got to establish whether there's actually any paranormal stuff going on, because that's the whole point we go in. But the problem with the private cases, when people call you in, pretty much everything we do is confidential, and by the time people call us in, it's usually because things have got quite bad, but then it's also in a place where they're probably putting everything down to the paranormal. You might get 1 or 2 things that actually are, but they're putting everything under the same umbrella. So it's going in and deciphering what, if anything, is paranormal.
Mm-hmm. There was a case years and years ago I read about, and it was a couple who were experiencing noises every night in their house, and they couldn't explain. So they got this team in, and I think the team charged them £400-500. Says, your house is definitely active. We need to come back, basically. So they weren't happy with it. So they got somebody else in, and one of the first questions, they says, when the second lot were in, they heard the noises, and the guy turned around and says, "Have you got central heating?" And they says, "Aye." Says, "What time does it come on?" And they said, 8 o'clock, whatever. And says, it's the sound of your pipes dinging with the heat. That's what's causing the noises. Because they says it happened at the same time every night. And says, as you're heating on a timer, he says, "Aye." Says, "Well, that's what's causing your noises." With these other clowns who'd been in, and it was like £400-500, they charged them and said, "Aye, your house is haunted, they were demonic, we shall be back." And I think that just opens the door for so many cowboys.
Yeah, exactly. We've never charged anyone for anything. In fact, it costs us money to investigate. So,
well, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, if we were to do a private house, which I doubt we ever will, and they were to say, right, you know, how much do you want? We'll give you £200-300. We wouldn't take it. We'd probably just say, well, a cup of coffee and a chalky biscuit, you know. Yeah. Or if you're travelling miles and miles to this place, you know, like, say, we're in Kilmarnock, so we were maybe travelling to Carlisle, whatever, it's a good 100. You may say, right, well, if you cover the cost of their fuel, then that, but as for charging for it, no. Because at the end of the day, you're doing something that you love anyway.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, I got into the field partly to answer my own questions, and by investigating people's houses, I'm getting some answers, even though I'm getting more questions, but it's doing me a favour as well as it's doing them one.
I'll stay a comment up in a wee second, folks. That's the other thing. Just you nailed the point on the head there, where he says, you know, when you do investigations, sometimes you don't come away with answers, you come away with questions. Well, the majority of the time, you come away with questions rather than mere answers, which just adds to the mystery. I say places with big hospitals that are converted to flats can be. That's true, because you know, hospitals. You imagine, you know, the suffering, death, or the rest of it that's happened in the buildings, you know, our decades and what have you. They definitely do flow. After what I saw last night today, both myself and husband saw a black grey mist come from the stairs to the kitchen and disappear. And today I saw a white mist in your house coming from fan area to end of TV. And we've got a fan in our bedroom, and where was it? After I was at school picking the wee up.
You were. And
I came back, and Sarah and Laura says he's seen a white mist in your bedroom. But we've never had anything, you know, happen in this house. We're going to investigate. Laura's mum said a few bits and bobs going on, so she wants us to go down and investigate, shall we say. But see, that's what I love about the paranormal, because you come away with more questions than the answers.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And you think, right, you know, where do we go from here? We've been doing a place called Loud and Cut for about three and a half years, whatever now. And we've had quite a few answers for it, but we've had quite a few things happen that lead to more questions that we hope maybe we'll get the answers to some point in the future. But just you're talking about private residences. I was watching a group, I'm not going to name them, but it's a Scottish group, and they did a private residence a couple of weeks ago, and they put some footage up. And one of the bits of footage that came up the right and said, a couple of days before we went, we knew it was demonic. They'd never been to the house. They said, we knew it was demonic a couple of days before we went. I thought, oh, how did you know it was demonic? If, you know, the guy phone you up, you up and tell you something, you know. And that's what I mean about these clowns that go and do. Do you think it gives a lot of, discredits quite a lot of the paranormal where you get monkeys running about?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't do us any favour having what I call the entertainment crowd. Doesn't do us any favours at all. But at the end of the day, us genuine ones are still clicking around in the background, and we're doing what we do. Whereas, you know, when they've had their 15 minutes of fame, we'll still be doing it. So
it's just really, really annoying. Although I know I've seen things in my mum's house and know what has went on and who visits, I'm kind of handing the reins to Sarah and Scott. So we're going to go down and have a wee look. Might not get anything. Might come away with an empty bag. Who knows? Yeah. The D word raises alarm bells for me. Yeah. Always does, Eileen. Yeah.
There are too many people shouting the word demonic when what you're actually dealing with is angry, confused, and lost souls that are trying to get attention.
I call them grumpy spirits, basically.
Well, yeah.
That's right. I mean, I'm not saying demons don't exist. I dare say they do exist. in some forum, some realm, somewhere.
I mean, if demons existed as much as it's thrown around on the telly, we're in serious trouble.
Oh, well, Satan's going to be taken out of the world in a week or two. Because, the demon activity is rising daily. Yeah. And we're all buggered, we're all screwed, basically. Yeah. But the other thing that get too much bad telling was some overzealous groups. Is when you get these cheesy, I'm going to say Zach Baggins, and they run into a house gun-ho.
I had a go at Zach Baggins on Twitter, and I ended up on 4 American podcasts after that because obviously they enjoyed the fact I had a go at him. But
well, you did you? Do tell.
Yeah, anyone seen the documentary did Demon House?
Aye.
He made a statement at the beginning, and he said, "I am one of the leading paranormal investigators." I said, "No, you're a ghost hunter." One of the leading paranormal researchers, and I said, "Well, Jeff Bellinger does your research," and I know Jeff. And he's one of the top demonologists in the country. I said he'd done a course that don't make you a demonologist.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite funny because he then blocked me, and but Aaron didn't.
He's been in he's been in the papers for somebody his ex-wife was trying to,
That's unreal, isn't it?
I don't know. I've not read the full story.
He has to deal with all the crap that Zach throws in his direction and that as well. I mean, poor bloke.
I used to watch it long time. Same as I used to watch Most Haunted, and I used to feel sorry for that guy Aaron because he did get all the crap basically. There's a big dark wet basement down there, right? Aaron, you get down there, and I'll stand up here. I'll stand up here in the camera like that. Aaron's in the basement,
I mean, if Zach was half the man he makes himself out to be, he'd be the one down in the basement because I would.
But that's it. Exactly. You get. I'm dying. We don't have them in Scotland. I think there's one or two, but they're all fenced off, and you just cannot. Not that we're trying to break in because we're upstanding citizens up here. But they've got Hartwood Hospital's one that I know for a fact has got a massive big basement. You see it in the horror films, big long corridors and stuff like that. I'd love to go in. I'd love to get into somewhere like that. There's 2 locations we've done here, and they're quite good basement. They're not massive, but they're a fair size. But I'm wanting one of these big long corridors that you get. You can just disappear and just. And that gets me. Zach back. He'll stand there and say, "Right, Aaron, you go down in the basement, take a torch, shout me if anything happens or whatever." You want to be in there yourself and having a look.
Yeah, too right.
Instead of saying, right, you go down and report back to me. I agree that Eileen is used to and blame too much. I saw the Demon House sign, load up, put nothing.
Yeah, and you notice he knocked the house down so no one else can investigate it to prove him wrong. All right, but there you go.
Well, he knocked it down at the end. If there'd been any action, he'd have kept it off. I would have kept it off a telly. It's no doubt you've encountered them or not, and you get these groups who go into a location and all of a sudden they get all this activity. And then they keep going, and there's a group up here that's done it in a place in the bar. There's one team done it one week, and they picked up on this young girl, But this other mob went in the following week, and they picked up on a young girl with a different name, and they get so much more. And now they've been back about 3 or 4 times, and they're really milking this in place. And I'm quite passionate about the bars because I grew up in Glasgow, and the bars was like saying home to me, and they've even dedicated a room to this little girl now. And there's balloons and toys, and it's a bit like Annie's room in Mary King's. but they're really milking this location. And it's really... And the other thing is, I've read a lot of the comments, and people are, oh, wow, that's amazing. You know, so this, oh, now I'm a believer. You converted me. And, you know, can you contact my dad? And all the rest of it. And these folk like that, you know.
Yeah.
We were actually, think they're on Girls Barras Park. Eileen knows who they are. Laura knows who they are as well. We were going to get them on the show last year, was in relation to not breaking in. I mean, if fences moves, don't get me wrong, if there's a loose bit of fencing and you actually fall against it, oh my God, I'm in. Oh, well, I bet so, you know. So if the authorities turn up, you say, well, look, Lucifer, that was already there.
Yeah. You can't fool me, Scott. My family's black from Glasgow, so there you go.
So you get Scottish blood?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could tell right away.
That, in fact, you talking about Paisleys, you know the statue of Robert Tanner Hill?
Aye.
Yeah, that's my great uncle.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's amazing the amount of people that I don't like you always use the word interview, just chatting to. We used to use the word interview to sound posh. Tonight we are interviewing, you know, such and such, you know. But it would just say chat. It's amazing the amount of people that I've chatted to, England and America, and they've all got Scottish ties.
Yeah, my mum, this will make you laugh. My mum in Glasgow, she went to Catholic school and she was Protestant.
Oh, that could do well in Glasgow, wouldn't it?
It was about 3 years before they realised and kicked her out.
3 years at a Catholic school. Did the Rangers scarf no year away?
Oh, don't talk about football in my house. Oh
no, I'm not.
My mum's Rangers, I'm Celtic.
Well, I can't say I'm not a football man. I've been to a couple of football matches decades ago, you know, but it's just never appealed. I'm a Formula One man. I love the Formula One. Football and that just doesn't interest me.
No, we don't talk football. Doesn't get mentioned.
Because it used to really annoy me, but you know, because I mean, I was brought up a Protestant, but I don't bother with that. You know, you're a person. That's at the end of the day. But I've known a lot of people that are really. One of my ex-brother-in-laws was really, really bitter against Catholics, and I used to say to him, "Why?" He said, "Because they're Catholic." I said, "Right, but I know they're Catholic, but why do you hate it?" Because that was the only reason he would ever give me. Because I said, "But if you're walking down the street and this guy's walking towards you, unless he's wearing a big crucifix or a Celtic top, you can't tell what religion he is." It's just so why, you know, I don't understand why you hate, because they're Catholic, so that's, I hate them. I think, no, I'm not thinking that. But I always see this group, their own bars, but they are really milking. In fact, we were going to have them on. What is this garbage, LOL? Don't know who that is. Bush did 911. I don't need a wee second. They're gone. We hardly ever get anything like that. I don't know who that person was.
But did you have a spammer?
Eh?
Did you have a spammer?
We had a spammer, aye.
What did they say?
Somebody David Bush did 911 and what's this garbage?
All right.
So they're ejected quickly.
That's unusual.
I know. We're usually well loved and respected as well. Imagine some of us. That's my Sarah and Laura have been telling me the last couple of days, and I know Eileen will disagree that I've got a hell of a big ego. You know, I can't help being gorgeous. You know what I'm saying? Ian? You probably always get the same problem.
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
Sometimes it's hell, you know, being this good looking. With this group, I'll get to it eventually, don't worry, we'll get there. The Barries, we were going to have them on the show last year and they wanted, the way charges £80. On the show. I said, £80, you kidding me? Yeah. Ego much? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. We've never been asked to pay for any guest that we've had on.
Yeah. How many tacky scones can you get for that? My God.
Well, the average price is about $150 for 6. So my math is crap. So, but I would reckon you're in the 6, maybe about 400.
Yeah.
Something like that. Maybe average.
You get the decent ones. The ones down here are crap.
We Rosie said that. We Rosie Cardiff for the Ghoul Gang. They were up here last year visiting.
Oh.
And they were totally amazed. We took them into a shop and we got tacky scones. And she'd never seen one in her life.
Oh.
You know. And she totally fell in love. They're coming up next month, actually. We're doing there's no May yet. Next month. We're doing an overnight at Loudon with Rosie and her mum, Emma. But she says, we have them doing, they're for Southampton. But they're called something different and they're a lot thicker and they're crap and all that. She says, no, you come to Scotland.
Yeah, they're potato cakes down here.
That's where I was, potato cakes.
Yeah. I tell you what I miss more than tacky scones is snowballs.
Tunnocks.
Yes, snowballs.
I don't like them.
Down here, they get these stupid things with marshmallow and chocolate. Oh, these are snowballs. They're not bloody snowballs. Bugger off. that's a mouthful. I'll be here for a couple of days eating a proper one.
You got that. It's not get it. You know, have some self-respect. I mean, I love England. We've got a lot of friends in it, and I've spent a lot. I drove trucks for about 20 years, and so I spent a lot of time, you know, doing south, all different towns, villages, and what have you. Some of the, I would go into cafes. You can get our own square, you know, and what? It's our own square sausage. What?
Yeah.
I said, what's a roll? Is it a roll?
Yeah.
And you say, is it me? You know, you're looking about a roll on, you mean a bap? A sausage bap bun? What? I know I'll forget it. You get up. You know, you get up and go somewhere else. And or some of the stuff that you eat, no, just wouldn't happen. You know, you can't be our own square or our own square potato scone, wee bit of tomato sauce on it.
Oh, yeah, bit of black pudding.
No, you see, I don't. I used to drive for a butcher's, and every Wednesday I would be sent to the abattoir to pick up the blood. And it was a big milk churns kind of thing. And every Wednesday that was my afternoon run away to Wishaw to the abattoir, and I'd have about 20 of these churns full of blood. And it wasn't too pleasant if one or two tipped over on the way back to the work. That's all I'm going to say. Let's just say the wellies and the power washer was it. And that's
the wellies and the power washer?
Where I used to drive for the butchers and the blood was spilling the back of the truck.
Oh, I just heard wellies and power washer and that made with something else.
Right. You what? Sorry.
I thought you were talking about weird stuff.
Weird stuff with wellies and power wash? I keep that to myself. That's my private time. I do my power wash when I'm wearing my wellies. But and so that's when I found out exactly how they make black pudding. You know, I'm not going to get into detail, but it put me off it for life. Right, here we go, Ian. I'm going to ask you this question. I'm sure to God, Eileen does this on purpose to me.
Yeah, good. That's a good question. Yes, well, I'm quite open to that, really, because it's a very good possibility. A friend of mine, he wrote a blog, What If the Ghost Is Me? and it's like you're at a place and a version of yourself in another layer has walked down a corridor and is walking back, and you meet them going that down there, and that's what you see. And I thought that is quite a good possibility. So I'm very much open to that sort of thing. And I've always had a look at it. The cryptics that appear and disappear, is that dimensional? Is that why they disappear? People spot them and then they disappear to nothing. Is that a possibility? Oh, ghosts. Well, we know ghosts. It's in a slightly different layer, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It just overlaps with us. So, yeah, I'm very much into that theory as a possibility.
See, that as well as in power washers. No, it's not my thing. It's mankini and wellies are my thing, Laura. When are you going to learn that? God's sake. Yeah. It's too cold for a power washer, don't you?
Yeah. When the kids are in bed.
Aye. I don't know if you've ever hit the jet on your horns with a power washer.
Oh, yeah.
It hurts. I done it stupidly one day outside. I kept pressing the gun, it wouldn't work, and I put my hand in front of it and it decided to work. Lost all my fingers. Kind of daft thing you did, you know what I mean?
We always try these stupid things.
That question, we did loud, one of the investigations we did it loud, and we got an EVP through asking, have you met Tayami, Ian? He met Tayami before we came on. She asked him a question.
And luckily I got it right.
He got it right, so she was quite happy. We did an investigation and we got asked, a queer EVP, are you ghosts? And we'd never been asked anything like that before, and plus the use of the word ghost might sound stupid, kind of got me as well. So I thought, well, who's asking this? And whoever's asking the question, is that somebody for the future asking us if we're ghosts? Or is it somebody for the past investigating there asking us? So that's what started the whole multi-strata time thing.
There was an interesting investigation that ghost hunters did. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but they were doing a hotel where a princess used to stay. And they were up in her room and they started asking questions. And she started responding. But she was responding to them as if they were the ghosts. And she's going, where are you? I can hear you, but I can't see you. So it was quite a weird conversation, which would sort of give that theory could possibly be right.
I'm as thick as hell, as anybody that knows me knows.
Where?
You don't need to agree with me, B. It's great when your other half agrees with you in the background, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I've said the many, so we're a basic team. No, Sarah and Laura, they're quite intelligent. I'm the thick one, in the bundle. So I'm very a kind of basic investigator. I believe spirit's basic. No offense to all the scientific side of it, but I've never understood it, and I don't try to understand it because I would just make a backside of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The consciousness is blending, encroaching on each other, allowing access. See, I don't understand what that means, and I'm not embarrassed to say it.
Well, it's like, when we see ghosts, it's almost like the layers have overlapped. That's why we presently seeing them.
Right, layers of time.
Yeah, and the same when cryptics appear. Somebody sees Bigfoot. It was it Faked or Fact? They were looking into a Bigfoot case, and they actually caught something large on thermal camera, and then it just disappeared. But they can't explain where it went. And they sent a drone up and everything, and it just disappeared. No heat source, gone. So, has it passed through one of those doorways?
I've seen a few. There's Kate. I've not seen you for ages, Kate. Where you been hiding, doll? That idea comes into the multi-stratter. I think they're thinking they're still in the real world. They don't know they're dead, so they're investigating us. It was just, Kate says hello. It was a really weird thing to be asked, or they were saying hello to each other. But I've seen a couple of videos, but you don't know if they're fake or they're no fake. I remember one, there was a guy walking along the street and then he just vanished. And there was another one today with a van, a white Mercedes van. I always remember it. I was driving along the road and then it was gone. And it was a clear day, it was a clear road, there was no buildings or anything. And it was and then it just vanished. Now, whether they were fake or no, I don't know. Kate's wanting to know if you're for the London area.
That's quite an illusion, that one. I'm actually Scottish, but my stepdad's a Londoner, but we live in Hastings on the South Coast. So hence why my accent appears to be a London area, but it's not.
What? I love London. Some of the people in London, no offence to your family and that, but some of the people in London, ignorant as, but not everybody. But I love London for the history side of it.
But don't you find, though, right, if you say to anyone in a foreign country that you're Scottish, they think you know everybody in Scotland?
Oh, aye. So
do you know me, Billy?
I've had that a lot in Glasgow. When I moved down here, some bumped into the way I was from Glasgow. Do you know John? The Easterhouse.
You escaped, Kate.
To escape for Hastings. But no, I find that, as soon as you say you're Scottish or you're from Glasgow, they say, do you know Peter? Stays in Bells Hill? No, I don't, sorry. Do you know Mary? For Springboy? They just assume you know. I mean, I think the population of Glasgow is, I don't know, about 750,000 people. But people assume that you know them all.
Yeah, but it's not being funny. Everybody in Scotland knows a Billy or a Mary.
Aye, or a Jim.
Jim, there's plenty of them in my family. My brother's a Jim.
Aye, or a Willie or something like that. But, there's always somebody. And it's the same as a couple of times I used to go when I was in London, away from Glasgow. Oh, Kevin Bridges actually joked about it, but it is true. You say, to Glasgow, all right. And you see them gradually stepping back. If you're just going to take a gun or a machete out of your pocket or something, you're for Glasgow. Aye, you must be in a gang. Because I've been in Glasgow's for a gang. Or where's your kilt? Or they assume you just still run about the sheet, the housing kilts and stuff like that. Where we actually have discovered the light bulb.
Aye.
Just no, I really do know everyone can't go anywhere without me. Aye, Laura's bad for that. She stays just about 2 minutes away from us, but it doesn't matter where you go. She knows that we were in Tesco where one day and we actually gave up and just left her because every aisle she knew somebody would talk. Do you know what? I can't do this. I can't physically do that. I'm not stopping at every aisle to talk to somebody. Easterhouse proper. Isn't Easterhouse proper rough? Yeah. Well, aye, there's nicer areas in Glasgow than there is. But people use the Amphi-Pollock, which is on par with Easterhouse.
My family, they lived in Pollock at one point. Most of my cousins that live in Hillington.
Just next to Pollock.
Yeah.
Aye, we get Pollock, Cardonald, Hillington, Penny Lee. Rigger for Spike, he stays in Penny Lee.
Yeah, my mum and my grandparents come from Govan.
Govan as well. Everybody thinks these areas are rough.
They're
You
not.
know, they're no. I mean, how can you put it? I mean, obviously we're not talking paranormal, as I said before the show, but hey, you know, people say, Paul, it used to be bad, you know. But then where we live, Short Leys, people say about Short Leys. Short Leys is a bit, poop holes, you know, but we're not going to that. But see, when people say, Pollock's no rough. And Pollock, it's no doubt you've noticed that annoying. People look after each other. It's the same as Short Leys doing here. Something happens. I mean, we get flooded in 2019. We lost everything basically. There was a few houses, and the amount of people that rallied round in Short Leys was unbelievable. And it's the same with Easterhouse, Pollock. You know, wherever you're from, if you're from that area, then folk look after you. You know, nobody bothers you. But if you come from Easterhouse and you go into Pollock and try being the big jack I am, then obviously you're going to get a kicking. Somebody's going to have a problem with that. I say this as an English lass, I would have got grief going to Easterhouse. No, you wouldn't, Kate. You're lovely. Everybody would have loved you going to.
I remember being in Glasgow when I was 18, and my cousin gave me a right earful because I went out on my own to the shop about 11 o'clock at night. And he said, "You can't go out with no Scottish accent."
I mean, Glasgow's one of the accents of a friendly city in the UK. Many people say that. If you're stuck, you know, I live in London. When Rapsy Nisbet was on the tail, I had to explain what it was all about.
Yeah. I had to explain to my mates down here what the hell Rapsy Nisbet was saying.
It's the same way, Still Game.
Yeah.
We Rosie, when she was up last year, we introduced her, and she'd never seen it. We introduced it still. She thought it was amazing. But we had to kind of explain it, kind of person's Rab Nesbitt as well.
Just show them Scotch and Rye, that'll mess them up.
Oh, Ricky Fulton. I remember Super Cop. I used to love him. Super Cop with the glasses that woof away, came back. But no, I mean, Glasgow, you can, if you get lost, I'll give you quick, before we get back, we did get back to paranormal, but one of the first times, I've got a mate stays in London, and I used to do visit him. One of the first times I went doing, he was working, he says, "Do you want to come to work with me?" I says, "No, I'm going to get into the city and do the touristy bit," as you do. So he said, "Well, we get the train, takes you into like Westminster, all the usual stops." So I got off at Westminster and went up, done the touristy bit. And I went back into Westminster Station to get back to he stayed in Putney. But you know yourself, Ian, it's like the maps are, you just cannot understand them. And the place was mobbed. And I did not have a clue how to get back to Putney. So I started asking people, excuse me. I just kept walking by. But then it was like a gift from God. I heard a Scottish accent. I was like, "Hark, what is that I hear?" And I hunted it down. There was a couple from Scotland. I says, "Listen, mate." I says, "I'm totally." What? He says, "Wait." I said, "I'm going to Putney." He says, we'll take you on the train, show you where to go and what have you. But the amount of people that just walked by me just totally blanked me. I don't know whether it was the accent or maybe they had a gynecologist appointment to get to or something that day. I don't know, maybe they were busy. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's their business. You mentioned Short Leys, people imagine nice guns. No, the community looks after you. It's the same as a lot of places, but no, a lot of people think Paul, Easterhouse, and all that. So I grew up there, you know, and I had a few tassels when I was younger, but nothing, you know, no, it's not the way people. We used to hear stories. You used to get young man say, "Oh, there's a pub, Potluck Inn, you called it the Stab Inn." It was not named the Stab Inn. And the stories used to come out, you know, usually on a Monday or a Tuesday. Oh, there was 5 riot vans outside the Stab Inn Saturday night, and you're like, I was in the Stab Inn Saturday night. Aye, there was guys knifed and all that. Wasn't any riot vans? Where were they on the roof? Says, "We're right, lads." In other words, and armed police and everything were all round about, and you're like, and that's how a lot of stories started with these monkeys all telling stories. There wasn't anything. Somebody dropped a pint. That was the most exciting thing that happened all night, But according to these clowns, Armageddon happened on Saturday night. You know what I mean? So your podcast, tell us about your podcast. We'll get it back into paranormal. We've only been on for 50 minutes. How do you go about putting your podcast together? I know everybody's got a different way of working and stuff like that. Do you have a specific way of putting your shows together or finding guests or whatever?
We just look for guests, or sort of like midweek. We'll think, what do we fancy discussing this week? And we'll just pick a topic out the air, and sometimes people in the chat will suggest topics that we'll do. We're quite happy to talk about anything that's paranormal related. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff we don't know about, so it's good to discuss it because then we're learning about it at the same time. So,
I try to keep a wide. You get these channels, these shows, whatever you like, called podcasts. Forget what they're called there, and they disrespect them. It's their thing, but they stick to the one thing over and over and over again. And it might be tarot cards every Tuesday. And that's it. And I think people get bored with that. People get fed up. And so, I mean, I like to try and get as many. We've had, paranormal teams, yourself, historians, authors, actors, all that kind of thing on our show. But it all comes in with paranormal or it comes in with history somehow. There is that. Don't get me wrong, but I have thrown in the odd show. Like I did an Elvis show towards the end of last year. A show about Elvis. Just to mix it up a wee bit, No doubt you've been asked this before as well.
Oh, it's got to be the Edinburgh Vaults or the graveyard. What's the name of it? It's gone out my head now. Kirk.
I know the place you're talking about. I want to see if you get it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes Greyfriars, that's it, yeah. My brain does a blank on me sometimes. Which when on investigations, it's quite funny. But
your mind just stops.
Yeah. I mean, definitely one of them too.
So you're actually not allowed to investigating Greyfriars now?
Oh, I'd love to, yeah.
You need the human touch to keep. You do. Edinburgh Vault's not great because of not. One of the sets of vaults is built combined in with there's a pub right next door to it or underneath it. I wouldn't tell you better. We did it a couple of years ago. But there's a pub there and, it's open till all hours. So doing an investigation in that set of vaults really isn't ideal because there's music and folks shouting and bawling that. But Greyfriars, we've done loads in Greyfriars. It's an amazing location. But you can't investigate there because we were saying earlier with these teams and I think there's something special and stuff. They were getting in and climbing our walls and headstones and all the rest of it. And there was thousands of pounds of damage getting done.
Problem, isn't it?
So what the council did was they brought in a permit scheme. You had to pay X amount if you wanted to investigate in it. But then again, you got more monkeys coming. They came in and they were still doing the same carry on. I think it was last year, the year before, a tourist ripped a plaque off of one of the walls. I think they got it back, but she ripped it right off the wall in broad daylight. So the council said, enough's enough. So now they've got enforcement officers that go around randomly 24 hours a day. And if you're caught, I think it's £1,000 on the spot fine. If you're caught investigating.
That'd be an investigation, wouldn't it?
Oh, aye, that would be. Although, I share the can of Diet coat with a spit. Aye, that was right. And the other set of vaults. What? Island's easily annoyed. But I know you mean Island, they do get in your nerves. No offence, see, as a Harry Potter fan, so I need to watch what I'm seeing. You know. I've watched all the they are good films, but these people, individuals, you know, you get them doing their annoying, they go round and round with the big cloaks and all the rest, and the wands and all that kind of stuff, and they just get in your way. Basically, you just want to make them permanent residents and Greyfriars. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's good. That's just the way they get to you eventually. So you've done a lot of investigations.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a "I'm never going back" moment?
No, I haven't actually. I mean, I've had some freaky things happen, but that just gets me more intrigued.
So what kind of, when you say freaky, what's your kind of freakiest things?
We were in the bear pit in Warwick Castle, and we were playing back the camera footage, and we actually caught a man screaming "Help me" and a bear growl on the camera footage.
Right.
That was quite spectacular. We had a full-blown apparition as well at Warwick Castle. Took the security guard and one of the people running the event actually were following this person, think they were lost, and they disappeared.
I mean, a lot of people say you don't get fully blown apparitions, but we Spig one time, we didn't see the gentleman, but we did a wee place in Ayrshire Stair, it's called. It's about 3 houses in a pub in this wee churchyard. We've done a few investigations and we've had some activity. But there was one day we were doing with Spig, and you park the car, there's a wee tiny car park at the top of the churchyard, and there was 2 people from Spig, and I think Craig, Laura's husband, they saw a guy walking across the car park. Now this place isn't miles from anywhere. Yeah. And he had a white shirt and brown and grey trousers on. So 3 of them ran up because they thought he was going to touch one of the cars. But then the guy vanished. And we went looking, you know, there's only so many directions this person could have. We had a good look about, and there's no way he could have disappeared that quick, you know, if he'd been sort of a guy running away. But it was Craig. And the 3 people who said that, you know, they're no nutters around, they're 3 reliable people. And it made them run up to the cars.
And a fairly similar thing happened to Dale Makin, who used to run Paranormal Truth. He was shopping because he lived up in Manchester. He went to the shopping centre and he saw a guy he knew walking down the road. So he waved it across the road at him like that. Walked up, put his stuff in the boot of the car and went over to talk to the guy. The guy just carried on walking and he thought, well, that was weird. Why did he just carry on walking? And then he saw his mum a couple of days later and she said he's been dead 3 weeks.
I'll tell you, a freakier one that, or who was somebody was on the show, Laura seen apparently I'm buried in Greyfriars. I've always had a draw to Greyfriars.
Are you the vampire, Scott?
Aye. But I've always been drawn to Greyfriars for years. You know, when I need to go to Greyfriars, and I was talking to, well, she said she was a medium, but you know, where it's like, Ian, anybody could be a medium. And I was telling her, you know, I said, I guess draw towards, I always need to go. She said, well, that's because you're buried there. I was like, huh? You know, she says, you were actually a soldier, and it was either Jeff or Jeffrey, and you were killed and you're buried in Greyfriars. So, well, you know, who knows? Maybe I am. But we are saying about full blow. I was talking to I'm sure it was last week, and they were telling me that there was a doctor worked in a hospital. I can't remember what hospital it was, but he was working one day and he get called down to a certain ward to confirm a death. On his way down, this guy stopped him and says, "Can you tell me the way to the exits, how I get out of here?" So the doctor pointed him in the direction of the exits. So the guy says, the doctor carried on his way, and the doctor went down. He go into the ward to confirm the death, and the guy lying on the bed was the guy that asked him for directions.
Oh, my. Yeah.
No, obviously, a lot of people thought he was active. This guy was a well-respected doctor, and they looked back in the CCTV, and it showed him stopping in the corridor and pointing towards the doors.
Yeah.
But there was nobody there. He was standing himself. But he says that, the doctor swore down, "That's the guy that I just gave directions to." I don't know how long the guy had been dead for, but obviously, so that's freaky and all. And I mean, people, no doubt you've been asked, have you ever seen a ghost?
Yeah. Many times.
I don't know, because what does a ghost look like?
I mean, I've seen them as solid as me and you, and the only reason I know they're a ghost is because I know the person's dead.
Mm-hmm.
So, is it possible we're always seeing them but don't realise?
Well, that's it. I mean, we've all seen the films, Ricky Gervais one, and all that kind of. He sees people. We used to say that some of the people we see outside are the spirits.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's another sort of fascinating side to the paranormal. We did one night at Loudon Cup. I think I'm kind of 90% sure I saw a little. We've always got this little girl at Loudon Cup, but I looked up and it was a split second, if even a second. There was a wee girl in the bushes over the left-hand side of where I was standing, and as if she was peeking round this bush or tree, whatever it was, and then she was gone. But it was just me that seen it, so I need to ask myself, did I see it? Did I see her?
Yeah, I had a moment like that. I was at a client. We were at a private case, and I was sitting in the front room with the clients. I was sitting in the corner by the door. They were sitting on the sofa in front of me, and in the corner of the room was a glass cabinet with a mirrored back. And I was talking to them, but I was looking towards the mirror at the time. And in between us, I saw a little girl run across the room. But she was in the mirror, not in front of me. I never saw her in front of me. I saw her in the mirror. That was quite crazy.
There's twice in our old house I've seen. I was in the bedroom one day watching the telly, and the telly was beside the bedroom door. The bedroom door was open, and it was just a flicker of somebody going by the door. I know I was in myself, but because it caught my eye, was someone by the door, and then it happened in the other bedroom as well. Again, somebody getting by the door, but again, I think you need to be skeptic in this business, you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Would you think, Ian?
Yeah, I think you need to be skeptical because everything will be paranormal otherwise. I mean, I'm a full believer, but I investigate everything with a skeptical mindset. Otherwise, it's just going to be.
I watched a few things in Team's on YouTube, and everything is paranormal. Every little thing. Did you hear it? That was spirit. That spirit as well. Oh, we're on fire the night. We're getting tons of evidence tonight, and rather than go and have a look about, so I mean that's how I say that we get out loud, and I'm not saying I definitely seen her because I was the only one and it was like that, and she was gone. So was it just my mind playing tricks because of where we were, what we were doing? You know yourself, there's 101 different scenarios that can make you think that you seen something. Especially Loudon, tall black hat. I was out and I felt privileged. I knew who it was, and he knew. I knew your old house was. Our old house was quite weird. I know who you talk about. Loud as a certain gentleman that was managed to identify Well, shall we say? I see floating figures coming from my porch and going upstairs. Also, a figure in the mirror behind me passing down the hall. That's I like your view on this as well. Some people in the paranormal and some people just coming into the paranormal think, again, we're going back to the ghost, I was going to say Ghostbusters, no Ghostbusters, Ghost Adventures.
You're talking about Ghostbusters. I've got a proton pack hanging on the wall here.
I thought Ghostbusters was amazing. I thought it was brilliant films.
I think it brings a good bit of humour into the film.
Aye, it showed that there was a lighter side to the paranormal, basically.
When I was a teenager living in the house I grew up in, Ghostbusters made me look at it differently. And it's probably why I'm an investigator now, because it took a bit of fear out of it at the time.
That's a good point. But I forgot what I was going to say originally. Okay, it's gone. But no, that is a good point, because I think a lot of people that's what I was going to say. A lot of people just coming out of the paranormal, they've been watching Ghost Adventures and Most Haunted, whatever.
Yeah.
And so they're expecting tons and tons of stuff to happen when you go in an investigation. But I think what they forget is it doesn't need to be flying headstones or anything like that.
No.
It can be the slightest thing that can happen. And maybe you're the only one that notices it.
Yeah.
I put that up. Come stay with me, Eileen. There's so many here. I saw Ghostbusters in Rome in Italian. Still don't know what to... Watch it now. Watch it. I think it's on Netflix, Eileen. I'm sure it's on Netflix.
It's got to be, isn't it?
But what you were saying, you watched Ghostbusters and it took away that kind of fear, or a part of the fear. And I think it's a good thing. I think that's the other reason we try to be kind of light-hearted on investigations.
Yeah.
We've got a lady, we're going to Loudon this coming Saturday. We've got a woman coming out with us, and she says to me the other day she's terrified. And we've been Loudon 3.5. We've never had anything negative at all. But I told her this, I says, listen, we've never encountered anything negative. In fact, we've only encountered one negative thing in the entire time we've been doing this, and that was at Canongate in Edinburgh. I says, it's no like Ghost Adventures, whatever. You need to be kind of light-hearted and laid back. Spirit appreciate that.
Yeah. They have a sense of humour just as much as we do. I mean, I've been at investigations where they have a bit of fun with you. It's all part of it. And, and it does help having a sense of humour in a paranormal film, because, sometimes you deal with quite some weird things. So it's good to just have a laugh about it, Sometimes you can't get your head around things, so have a laugh at it, and, somewhere along the line you might remember it. And, oh, yeah, okay, that was...
I think it attracts spirit more. It's not that you're making a mockery of the paranormal or the sort of situation, but I think it attracts spirit more if you're not a stuck-up monkey.
Yeah,
that's exactly. I'm being polite, basically. If
you're having a bit of fun and they were like that in life, they're going to like it. That's
and as you say, some spirit like it. I mean, Laura, she had her bum felt at Alloway Kirk once. She was sitting in a camping chair and somebody tweaked her bum cheek, I sat in the same chair for 3.5 hours. Nothing happened. I was gutted. Everyone's away here and I'm sitting there myself. Come on. Not a thing. Well, I have a question for Ian. Explain seatbelt thing.
Seatbelt thing?
Right, you've lost us, Laura.
In the car.
Oh, the car, aye. I know what she means. Sarah, just tell what she means. every time Laura comes out in her carways, now this has happened in your car. Pardon me. I spoke to other people about this. This has happened in 3 different cars.
Right.
She sits in the back, you know, at the pass, one side or another. But what do you call it? The alarm, seatbelt alarm, always goes off for the middle seat whenever she gets out of the car. And it's happened. One car, you could maybe say, right, it's a fault.
Yeah.
You know, you need it looked at. But it's happened in 3 separate cars.
Yeah, that's.
And we can't explain it.
Well, yeah, that's.
But it only happens with Laura.
She's obviously got somebody that likes hanging around with her then.
But see, that's to me, that would be the only kind of logical explanation.
I mean, if it's 3 different cars, that's sort of like, that's almost the laws of physics, isn't it? You replicate the thing 3 times and you still get the same result. So, yeah, that's quite bizarre.
If it had been one car, then you could maybe say, right, I'll need to get it checked. It's also a faulty sensor or something. But no, you're not going to have the same fault at the same seat in 3 different cars.
Okay, I'll give you a similar thing. I'll give you a similar. I used to be a DJ, so I have a vast array of knowledge about music throughout the 70s, 80s, etc., etc. And if I'm thinking of a question in my head that I'm really trying to find the answer for, I will get in the car and the first song I hear on the stereo answers the question. How does that work?
That's a weird one as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very weird. That's happened to me many times where I'm trying to think of something. I need an answer for something, and I'll jump in the car, and the question gets answered. But the first line of the song I hear.
I mean, people might think you're nuts, you know. 3 different, and it's only that, so I forgot. It only happens when we pick her up for her house. But it is weird. I mean, when I was when I was in my 20s, my first wife, before mobiles were invented and all that kind of technical stuff, you know, you just use your basic landline. We had a landline, the phone was on the wall. It was one of these, it was posh back then, by the way, the phone on the wall, you know. And every time it would ring, I would know who was phoning.
Exactly the same, yeah.
Without even, because the phone was on the other side of the living room, and it's no if with big numbers flashing up. I see, that's your mum, that's your sister, and it used to freak her out, you know, and it used to freak quite a few. So how did you know? I said, I don't know, but that's your mum on the phone. Oh, hello, mum. Just I was right again, and you know that happened for I don't know a few months. It also happened that if we would maybe sitting one night watching telly, I would get something in my head saying, you know, she's going to ask to get Chinese in about half an hour. And sure enough, you fancy takeaway the night, you fancy a Chinese, whatever. I knew she was going to say it. But then that kind of disappeared, you know, it stopped happening. But as you say, you know, you get into the car and it's the first song you put on answers your question. I used to be able to tell you who was phoning. And do you think maybe your car thing, right? Here's my theory on it, being a professional.
Professional what, Batman?
Professional host. All right. Give me something here. Work with me. You know.
Professional Easter egg eater.
Professional what?
Easter egg eater.
Well, I'm quite good at
I'm one of them as well.
Ian's one of them as well. I'm quite adept at, you know, making an Easter egg vanish in about 3 minutes. You know. I see your car thing. Now, I've got this theory that, well, everybody at one point in their life experienced some kind of problem or something, you know, whether it be financial, emotional, whatever, and we can't see a way out of it. But it was at the midnight hour, basically, a solution suddenly pops into your head, you know, or somebody will come up randomly and you'll get a solution. And I always think that's spirit, whether it be a family member, spirit guide, whatever you want to call them. You know, they're sitting there watching, and they don't interfere with your life because, you know, it's free will and what have you. But if they see you are really, really in a jam, they'll give you that wee nudge.
Yeah.
Say, right, this is how to do this. And do you think that could maybe be the scenario with your car, with the radio? Maybe the spirit.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Giving you that wee helping hand.
Just giving you a nudge in the right direction, yeah.
You know, because I do believe in millions of other people, you know, there's loved ones that they're always keeping, they might not be right, sitting right next to us, but they always know what's going on with us.
It's like, was it someone said to me once, you know, when you walk out the house and you forgot something and you go back in, they say, you know, that they think that you've been delayed for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
There could be some truth in that.
It's like, I've told this story many a time, but I don't know if you've heard that or not, so I apologise to people in the chat. But I drove trucks in that years and occasionally I used to drive transit vans, you know, and it was before the seatbelt law came in.
Yeah.
And I was really bad for no wearing my belt. I never ever wore it because a friend of mine's mum died in a car crash. Her car went on fire and she couldn't get the belt released. So, you know, I never ever wore them. But there was one Friday, I came out of Carlisle and there was a wee lay-by. Went out of the lay-by, I was had my sandwiches. And before I set off to go back to Glasgow, something kept telling me, put your belt on, put your seatbelt on. Over and over again. So I put my belt on. And I was about 30, 40 miles from Glasgow. And I was involved in that. There was 7 cars involved in a big pile-up on the motorway. And the van was destroyed. The van was totaled front and back. But the police, a van went into the back of me. They says he was doing about 70 miles an hour when he hit the back. I was sitting stationary in a contraflow getting into roadworks. The police reckoned he was doing about 70 miles an hour when they were in the back of my van. And the police said, if you hadn't been wearing your belt, you'd have been through that windscreen. Because the engine was lying on the road, half the dashboard, it was just destroyed, basically. And the police says you would have been through that windscreen. And people say to me when I get back up the road, I'd buggered my shoulder and stuff like that. You know, the usual kind of...
yeah.
Because why were you wearing your belt? Because you never ever wear a belt. I said, I know, but something just told me to put my belt on. So they found this quite bizarre that, you know, that one occasion. And so obviously since I get into this, that comes back to me. You think, maybe that was spirit, somebody telling me, put your belt on.
Yeah.
That because it was really, really just niggling. You really niggling thoughts you get in your head.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I was just put your belt on, put belt, seat belt, put your belt on. So I'm going to just put my belt on. And that's what, I'm not saying I would have been killed or anything, but there would have been quite a wee bit of damage done to this physique. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't be as good looking as I am today. Basically. But that's over. I think we're going to only run for an hour, Ian, do you know what I mean? I want to get you back on because there's much more I want to chat about. If that's all right with you, if you'll come back and see us.
Of course, mate, no problem.
So I'll get you some other dates. So I'll keep a hold of you just after we come off. Where can people find you?
They can find me on, we're on Facebook under Residential Haunting. We have our own webpage, which is www.residentialhaunting.co.uk. And we're also on Twitter at Team Res Haunt. So that's where you can find us.
So go give him a look up, folks, because he's an interesting guy, and catch him on his podcast because he's roughly the same as me. Very laid back and just...
Yeah, that's Freaky Friday on a Friday night. You'll find it on the Simply Spooky Network.
Do you remember it spells goes freaky, like you just said.
Yeah, Freaky Friday. There you go.
Aye, that Freaky Friday. You're welcome, ladies.
Yeah.
So, and yes, Scottish. So that's a big plus. You know that's a big plus right away. As soon as somebody says I'm Scottish, bam, you know you're on to a winner.
I'm one of the invaders in disguise. So,
aye, people south of the border don't know he's Scottish. He's incognito. No,
except for when I'm wandering around in my football shirts. Yeah.
Or his kilts. With his wellies.
Oh, I've not worn a kilt for years.
And you see, that's the thing, you know. I know we're going to wind up, but hey, people just assume you're Scottish so you wear a kilt. I used to be in the Scouts when I was, you know, a teenager. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of the gang show.
Yes.
We used to be I was in the Glasgow gang show for about 5 years or something in a row. And you had to wear a kilt. And I hated it, you know, because I had long hair and all the rest of it, you know. Yeah. And outside the gang shows, I used to wear jeans and leather jacket and everything, so I had to wear a kilt and all the rest of it. And walking through Glasgow, I don't know how well you know Glasgow, we used to rehearse in Elm Bank Street and then go to Baird Hall and Sucky Hall Street for something to eat. So it's not a big distance, but when you're wearing a kilt on a Saturday afternoon, it seems like it's about 10 miles.
Yeah.
You know, you come out one building, you can literally see the other building you're going to, but it's like a 10-mile walk on a Saturday afternoon, and everybody's staring at you, walking along with your kilt on, with your socks and your wee tassels and all the rest of it. But enough about me. But we'll wind it up. What I was saying, oh dear God, I saw what you wear daily, a kilt with. They all slag my leg, but they hold me up, and I don't care how my legs look. I've got a motto: "Sun's out, shorts out." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got to make the. Laura, see for that. See next time you come round, I'll have my mankini and my red wellies on, and I'll no be in my paddling pool. So there's a threat for you. I mean. But we'll wind up there, folks. So a big thanks to this young chap here. You will be seeing him again because I've got lots more to chat with him. And we'll see. We've got Debbie Ison and Paul's coming on. They're teaming up tomorrow night. Going to take me on for a chat, see how they got on. They'll probably win. I'll lose, but hey ho, know what I mean? And a big thanks to Ian. And you will. Oh, Laura, seriously, don't. I was just going to have a cream egg. Say, don't. That's just I've got no words for that one, so we're going to call it a night and say good night to you all. All right, folks, we'll take care and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.